who are interested in the TriShare program, but who are not going to be able to make it to this time. So we'd like to be able to make this available going forward. Jen, do you have some opening remarks, or would you like me to get going and then we can, I know I'm kicking it back over to you soon.
I think we can go ahead and get started. Woody, did you see my recording message flash across your screen? Perfect, great. Then we're good.
Okay, so welcome everyone. Thanks for being here for this information meeting on the TriShare program for Northwest Lower Michigan. My name is Woody Smith. I am a business owner in Traverse City, but I also serve as the employer liaison for the TriShare program for the 10 counties of Antrim, Benzie, Charlevoix, Emmett, Kalkaska, Grand Traverse. I'm going to forget some. I should have done them alphabetically. Leelanau, Manistee, Missaukee, Wexford. I think I missed somebody in there. But anyway, we're delighted to have you here. Here's our agenda. We may not use our full hour of time. That's kind of going to be up to you. I think we'll give you an overview of the program. We're being joined today by Nicole Agruda from Cherry Republic, an employer that is currently has implemented the TriShare program, so that she can share with you some of her thinking about why Cherry Republic decided to participate in the program and what some of their experience has been. But then we have plenty of time for questions and answers. So I'm going to invite Jen to give you just kind of an overview of what the program is all about, as well as this is in its pilot phase, but what we can expect going forward. And then I'll give you kind of more from an employer point of view, what you need to know, or what I think you need to know about the program. So go ahead, Jen.
Perfect. Well, again, thanks for joining us today. My name is Jen Harris. I am the founder of Schoolward Consulting here in Traverse City and serve as the project manager for our facilitator hub. Our hub is a partnership between United Way of Northwest Michigan, Great Start Collaborative of Traverse Bay, and 5to1.org. So the Michigan TriShare Childcare Program is an innovative funding model that utilizes public and private dollars to increase access to quality, affordable childcare. Essentially, and as the name suggests, the cost of care is shared by three entities: the state, a participating employer, and an eligible employee. Michigan is the first state to test a model like this, and we are grateful to the Michigan Women's Commission and the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity for supporting this pilot. So looking back in March of 2021, the first three hubs were selected, one rural, one urban, and one suburban. Our hub obviously is the rural hub. Initially, we served just 5 counties: Antrim, Benzie, Grand Traverse, Kalkaska, and Leelanau. And in December of 21, with increased funding from the state, we were able to extend our service area to the full 10-county reach of the Great Start to Quality Northwest Resource Center, to include also Charlevoix, Emmett, Manistee, Missaukee, and Wexford. So currently, our hub has 8 employers with signed MOUs, a total of 7 families who are enrolled in our program and billing, and we're serving 9 children who are in care, with capacity to serve many more, which is why you're here. Also, currently, there are 12 facilitator hubs statewide, serving a total of 52 counties in Michigan, as well as the city of Detroit. When our pilot began, TriShare had a budget of $1 million, which allowed each of our 3 hubs to request up to $300,000 from the state. The governor has increased our funding twofold. We currently have a budget of $2.5 million, and the pilot has been extended through December of 2022. And expanded to include the 7 additional hubs that came online last month. Looking forward, because I know probably many of you are wondering whether this will continue beyond 2022. What we can say is that we're hopeful that the program will continue. It certainly has bipartisan support. It's in the governor's budget. And as soon as we know more about how the budget process is unfolding at the legislative level, we'll keep you updated. But for now, we're hopeful. So, Woody?
Thanks, Jen.
Sure.
So, Carl, thanks for introducing yourself. We're asking folks, oh, and there we go. So yeah, I'll just say it maybe one or two more times. If you would like a copy of the presentation we're going to be sharing today, or would like the recording of this session, just go ahead and put your email in the chat at some point during our conversation. So let me walk you through this from an employer's point of view, just give you some of the basics, and then I'll turn it over to Nicole to share the experience of Cherry Republic. So as Jen mentioned, it's a pilot program. It's being offered through the end of December of this year, but there are lots of reasons to think that an extension in 2023 is likely. Nothing is guaranteed, but it's every indication is that this is a program that will be continued. Cost of childcare is split three ways. That's why it's the Tri-Share program. So we're talking about children with a broad definition, 0 to 17, although really the program, as we've seen it in our region, is often being implemented for those that are before school age. But it is appropriate for kids who are in after-school settings, before school settings, so that it's everything from what you might think of as a kind of a classic model of childcare or daycare to lots of different types of licensed childcare settings. It is being provided in our region through United Way of Northwest Michigan. Jen already touched on that. To be eligible for our hub, the employer has to be located in one of the counties we mentioned: Antrim, Benzie, Charlevoix, Emmett, Grand Traverse, Kalkaska, Leelanau, Manistee, Missaukee, or Wexford. But as is the case of Cherry Republic, they have employees that are not in this area. There can be providers who are outside of this area that serve the needs of families that are working in this area. So long as you are in this geographic area, you can be considered as an employer for the program. As of right now, because of the number of hubs that have been expanded, most, if not all, of the state of Michigan is covered. So even if you're outside of this area, you may want to hang on and learn something about the Tri-Share program as it's being implemented here, and much of it will be applicable outside of the area. Funds may be used for any licensed childcare. So unlicensed care is not eligible for the Tri-Share program, and that is everything from child cares that are not operating on or licensed from the state of Michigan, or care being provided by a family member. Those types of things are not eligible, but a lot of it is. So preschool, child care, before and after school care, summer programs, those are all eligible for the Tri-Share program. There is an income eligibility requirement. So part of this is because when the legislature, with the support of the governor, implemented this, there is a subsidy for those that are earning below, I think as of right now, it's what, 185% of the federal poverty level, Jen? So they intended this to be stacked on top of it. So this is currently available to those who are between 185% and 300% of the federal poverty level. That depends on household size. So this table that you're looking at right now is our eligibility for 2022. So to be able to participate in the Tri-Share program, a family has to fall within these guidelines. If they're at the lower end, they fall below the lower end. In theory, there's a program that exists to serve their needs. That's the Tri-Share subsidy. If they're above this level of household income, they don't qualify for the Tri-Share program as it stands right now. I mean, we would love for this program, I'm speaking for myself, I'm not speaking for the state of Michigan, to be more broadly applicable to families across our region, because we know that even at sort of the upper limit of this, there are lots of families that struggle to pay for childcare. But in reality, so a single parent with one child, that would be a two-person household. You'd look at the this area here, you'd see, oh, somebody who's a single parent with one child could make up to roughly $55,000 a year and qualify for the program. If it's a two-parent household with two children, that's a four-person household, the upper limit in that case would be $83,250. We are doing some limited income verification. So the way that it works is if an employer has signed an MOU with United Way of Northwest Michigan, an employee of that employer signs up, says, this is my income from this employer, we would be confirming that income. They would also self-report if they have a spouse or somebody else contributing to the cost of childcare. That goes into the calculation, but we're not doing income verification on that. I'm sorry if that seemed confusing. We can definitely go through that again once we get to our Q&A section. But this is the basics of it. Eligibility is determined by household income. We'll be doing some limited income verification for employees that sign up for the program. So what are the benefits? Many of this may be self-evident for you if you're on this call and you're curious about this. The employers that have signed up have said things like they want to be an employer of choice. They want to be able to tell their employees and their prospective employees that this is a program that they offer. It's a unique benefit. It's differentiating from other types of employers, lets you win the employees that you would like to have who have young children for whom the cost of childcare might be a barrier. We think that there is going to be, for the same reason, improved retention. And then, lots of employers are good citizens of our local communities, and they recognize just how challenging this is for their employees and want to be able to extend that benefit. For families, obviously there's a reduced cost of childcare, but we believe that this is going to give them improved options as well. One piece of this is that if a family does not currently have childcare, we will be working with that family to try to identify them through the Great Start to Quality Northwest Resource Center. So the Great Start to Quality, I have this later in the deck, but I may as well cover it here. These are folks that work with all of the licensed childcare providers in our 10-county region. They have great connections. There's no guarantee that they can find a placement, find an opportunity, but they are probably the best position to be able to do that. They have connections, they have resources that the rest of us don't. And so far we've been pretty effective even for those families that don't currently have a provider in trying to identify a provider that meets their needs. So in addition, it ends up being automated, it ends up being just easier to manage. And then for providers, childcare providers, this program offers a level of financial stability. They don't have to chase down the billing and the payment because of the way it gets set up. I'll cover that in a sec. Okay, so if you are on this call, what would you do if you want to move forward with this program? Well, first, you would assess the potential need and the demand. I think Nicole can speak to this when I turn it over to her in a minute. There are lots of ways of doing that. One of them can be doing a benefits survey. One of them can be doing, there may be other employee benefits that let you know the number of dependents you have that would assess what the potential need might be. If it seems like it's something that's a really good fit for you, you would sign a memorandum of understanding with the United Way of Northwest Michigan. It's not very long and it's not very onerous. It just kind of spills out with the obligations, the expectations would be for the employer and of United Way. Employees using or needing childcare would sign up at 5to1.org. I've got a screenshot for you in a sec. If they do qualify based on that household income, they would be contacted, you would be contacted as the employer to confirm the salary. They would then, if they already have a provider, we would then contact that provider. So far, none of them have said no, and set them up with the TriShare program. If they don't, then, as I mentioned, a representative of the Great Start to Quality would work with the family to try to find a placement that fits their needs. And then we do set up, the system it's a payroll deduction pre-tax. I can give you the opinion letter on the tax treatment of this. Typically, it's an electronic funds transfer for the employer and employee portion. United Way then pays in full the amount of the childcare cost to the provider, and then they will submit to the state of Michigan for reimbursement. So United Way is sort of serving as the bank for this program and for which we are grateful. So this is what it looks like. If your employee were signing up, they would go to 5to1.org, where there are a number of resources for families, but they would see the TriShare program right there at the bottom. They would click on that. If you are an employer that signed up, they would see that. This would all, this would automatically be checked. They'd see, oh, my employer is Cherry Republic, and then they would provide a little bit of basic information in terms of the number of people in the household and their household. So that's basically how it works. We can go back to any of that I covered, and I'm sure you have some other questions, but I did want to give Nicole, the HR manager for Cherry Republic, a bit of a cameo and ask her just to share something about the decision-making that they went through as an organization when they decided to sign up for TriShare, and then anything else you feel like you want to share, Nicole, with the other employers who are on the call.
Sure. Thanks, Woody. And thank you for everyone else who's on the call, learning more about TriShare and the benefit that it can bring to your employee. First, I'll start by letting you know that a little bit about Cherry Republic, who we are. You might be thinking, okay, who are they? What do they do? And how does this relate to my business? And we have storefronts, and you may have seen them. You may have been familiar with them. Hopefully, you've tried our products. They're all Cherry products. But so we have production
products.
I'm going to sell them to you too, right? Like, come get our stuff. But we have production staff. So those working in the production of food, we have the fulfillment, we have logistics, we have a restaurant, we have retail stores across the state. And we also have, of course, our business offices. So we have quite a diverse staff coming from all different ages and backgrounds. And so we did do a brief survey of our staff when we were first rolling this out. But the one that Woody mentioned, is I talked to him recently, is we try to put out a full benefit survey every year to touch base, see what our employees want or what they need. And on the most recent one, TriShare was part of that. So we kind of gauge the interest in what people need. And so one of the things that we were looking at when we first signed up is that we already know that childcare is a huge expense. And sometimes that can put people out of the job market, right? They may not, both people in the family may want or desire to work or need to work, but childcare is really expensive. And so if we have the opportunity to help an employee save 66% on their childcare costs, then that is a fantastic benefit that we can offer. Not only does it help them, but it looks good in our benefits package as well, something that we can offer as an employer of choice. One of the things about our staff is we have about 200 core year-round staff, both part-time and full-time. However, during our peak season, summer and holiday, we go up to between 420, 450. We can reach those heights. So this is something that we can also offer to our seasonal staff. If they're coming in and they're working, maybe it's only 3 months, maybe it's only a shorter amount of few weeks, it's something that they can sign up for and gain eligibility for. So this is something unique that we can offer them, because most of you may be familiar with other benefits where you have to meet, a certain amount of days requirement or a certain amount of hours requirement. This doesn't do that. You're trying to meet an eligibility based on income. So that part of the process and the way that the hub handles that, we as the employer, we don't have, it's not us making a judgment call or a decision. It goes through a very nice and professional process for the employee. So that's something that's also really nice for both us and I think the employee as well. And so we said we want to be able to support our employees in any way that we can. So we signed up and we got started with it. And it's something that we can say that this is something that's in our benefit package. And not only is it in our benefits package, but it's available to everybody. The seasonal, the full-time, year-round, part-time, year-round. It's something that can, potentially be available for anyone within the company. And so that's a really nice benefit to offer. And the other part of that is we want to make sure that, as people struggle with expenses and, that we can help them make sure that their children are having access to affordable and good childcare. So it's affordable to them and it's quality childcare. And that's something that I think is very important to all of us. As Woody mentioned, our headquarters is located in Leelanau County. But we are able to offer it across all of our locations across the state. That includes Ann Arbor, Holland, and Frankenmuth. And then, of course, up here in Traverse City and in Charlevoix as well. And Empire, where production, fulfillment, and logistics resides.
That's fantastic, Nicole. Thank you so much. So we will I have a couple of common questions that have come up in our discussions with employers that we can just cover right now. And then we'll open up to any questions that you have. And they can be questions for Jen, they can be questions for me, they can be questions for Nicole. But one of the questions that often people want to ask or want to know the answer to is, what is the typical cost of childcare for one employee? And there's a lot of variability. There's a variability across our region. Care for infants and toddlers is quite a bit more than for older children. So one of the things that we use that's a bit of a benchmark is that it might be something like $8,000 to $10,000 a year for full-time care. Not every employee wants that. We've had some who are only using this for after-school care, some for might use it for a summer program. But if it were a full-time or a full year of childcare, it might be something in that range, which would mean that the employer portion of that would be about $3,000. Is this a pre-tax benefit? Yes, provided certain conditions are met. We're happy to provide you with our opinion letter from the state of Michigan. You can evaluate with your tax professional, but it is, that this is our understanding of how it can be applied. Another question that often comes up is, what if there are few childcare options in our area? And that's a big issue for our region and for our state, for all of us to kind of, wrap our arms around. And I think there are things underway to try to improve the capacity and the availability of childcare options. But I will say it again, that we have the best possible people to be advocates for families who are participating in the program. The Great Start to Quality Northwest Resource Center staff have tons of experience and connections and know a variety of options that may not have occurred to the families. Some of the employers that have signed up with the program just see this as a unique benefit in and of itself, to know that there would be somebody who is going to be an advocate and is going to be looking after the families. There is no guarantee that we'll find a placement that will meet the needs of the family, but it is really kind of maybe the best chance that is something that can happen. So with that said, let's open it up to your questions, see what it is you'd like to know more about as you consider this program. Okay, I'm going to ask another question of Nicole, or I'll put it out there as a question as if you'd asked it, but now get ready, because as soon as I'm done, it'll be your turn. So another question that maybe comes up, and Nicole, if you have 2 cents on this, feel free to answer, is, well, what if we don't want to do what Chair Republic did? What if we want to limit this based on 90 days employment? Or what if we wanted to limit the number of children that this could apply to for any given employee? The state of Michigan has made this very flexible, but that doesn't mean that any given employer has to offer all of that same flexibility. So just with your other benefits programs, when some of those are defined, based on tenure or based on some other conditions, this is also one where the employer has the ability to put this into your benefits package and into your employee handbook in a way that's going to meet the needs of the employer. But the spirit of it is really to be as flexible as possible to meet the needs of our families. Nicole, anything to add to that as people might think about this?
Yeah, I think that, excuse me, because I've spoken with some other employers who are, we're thinking about signing the MOU and getting started, like, how do you try to figure out like how many people you might be able to support? Because the budget is, an important part of that. And for us, we did a survey and we determined that, it wasn't a huge amount of people to start out with. So it was something that we said, okay, we're not going to put a limit on it. But I think for some employers, and you're putting a budget around that with your benefits offerings, I think the flexibility is that we can serve 10 families. It's first come, first serve. We can serve whatever that looks like. And I do love the flexibility that is built into the program. And again, not all companies have, you know, we have a payroll and benefits person who does a lot of this, you know, the payroll deduction, setting that up and making sure that that flows smoothly. And I give her so much credit for that. And I'm thankful, but I'm also very aware that not every HR department has that. And not every organization has an HR department. So if it makes more sense to limit it to a first come, first serve, and it makes more sense to make them go through a 30, 60, 90-day waiting period, whatever that looks like, the idea that the state's been really flexible with what this looks like, I think offers something for every type of employer.
Thank you. Kristen, you unmuted. Is that because you had a question?
I didn't unmute, but I unvideoed. I have a question though. I'm wondering, you know, say everybody on the call is just really wanting to be an employer and they have a family that has 2 people that are employed by a company that participates in TriShare and they qualify. How would that work? Just out of curiosity, would each employer split the third? I mean, ideally that would be a perfect scenario that so many employers want to participate, but just out of curiosity, has that been thought of?
That's an unusual situation that I don't think we had thought of, but you know, ultimately there is kind of one bill for childcare that is going to one family, and so the idea is, I think, would still be a third, a third, a third. So even if there are multiple employees, the benefit would be to one of those employees, or if you like, you know, maybe those people are each paying a sixth, but the employer is still only paying a third, in the state of Michigan.
Thanks.
And Jen, I assume that since you're nodding, I didn't speak out of school there.
That makes perfect sense to me. That's how I would have answered that question.
All right, I think I may, I'll stop the share for now just so I can see everybody and see if anybody else is sort of obviously has questions. But we can go back to the table. We can go back to anything else that might be of interest to you. What else would you like to know about the program? Mary, go ahead. You asked if you could make a comment. Feel free.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm co-director of the Great Start to Quality Northwest Resource Center with Kristen Witt, and also represent 5 to 1. And one of the things that we are aware of is that, as Woody and Jen mentioned before, there's a lower limit below which, if people have an income below that 185% of the federal poverty level, they are eligible for the child care development subsidy that the state offers. And what we have seen in the past is that there have been a lot of employees who have either declined to work more hours or have declined a promotion into a better position within their company, because it will kick them up out of that income bracket. And so in terms of being able to really take full advantage of the talents that you have, the TriShare program could be a big support for those families who would lose all of their subsidy funding, and so might be able to still stay employed with you and in a better job or more hours.
Thank you for that, Mary. I'm seeing in the chat that Carl is asking, has this program been shared with the local Chamber of Commerce? We have shared it with as many chambers of commerce as we can find. So it has gone to Traverse Connect. It has gone to the 6 chambers of commerce in Leelanau County. It has gone to the Benzie Chamber of Commerce. It has gone to the Cadillac Area Chamber of Commerce. But if you have a specific one in mind that you feel does not yet know about this program, go ahead and let us know about it.
Woody, this is Rebecca from United Way. I'll also add that the 5 chambers that are in the Charlevoix and Emmett County area have also been contacted.
Thank you. So Carl added Petoskey Chamber, and do you want to add some more detail on that, Rebecca?
Yes, the Petoskey Chamber and I have been in constant communication about this program. I don't know if there's anything else, Carl, specifically that you have as a clarifying question for that.
But I think it raises a good point, Carl, which is that, we are often communicating to chamber leadership, and if they have, chamber communications like a newsletter, they make that available to their members in that way. But, I think it's any creative ideas we have on how to continue to spread the word so that businesses that are interested find out about the program. We're very open to hearing what your ideas are. Yep. Okay. Thank you for that.
This is
Any other-
Marna.
Sorry.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead,
It's
Marna.
Marna, sorry. Is there a limit to the number of people that can sign up or children per employer? Is there any? I mean, what if I take all the slots and all my employees sign up? I mean, is there, you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I mean, as Jen mentioned, there is an overall budget for the program that was allocated.
Right.
We are not close to that limit yet. So I think that is, as far as I know, that's the only limit that we would have.
Is that 2.5 million per your hub region? Or for
It
the
is
whole
not, it is
program?
overall for the whole pilot.
Okay,
For the state's portion. Yeah.
for the state's portion, okay. All right. But so far, you don't have a limit per employer, like how you can have up to 15 families. I guess I'm just thinking of it conversely.
No, as of right now, we don't have that kind of a limit.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to mention something, just kind of dovetailing off of what Mary had said. The ability to be able to, increase their hours, but there are also employees who, for other reasons, can't increase their hours, and they may not be eligible when they sign up. And I had spoken with someone from a different employer, and they had an employee who did not meet the eligibility requirements, and they actually were eligible for other funding through the state that they were not even aware of. So the program in the hub takes a really good look at helping. They just don't tell them, oh, you don't qualify, have a nice day. It's a really thorough process, and they will come alongside them and help them and offer other resources to those employees. So I think that's a really important part as well, that they are there helping to support the families. As Woody also mentioned earlier, that as HR people or as managers, it can be really hard to know all the resources that are available for your employees in each and every community. To be able to have someone else that comes along as a subject matter expert, that is of so much value to us as an employer.
So Carl asked a very good question, but it's a little hard to answer. He asked, how long does it take from sign up sign up with the program to the employee receiving the benefit? I think Mary had an answer for that. I'm going to just say some of this is going to reside with that employee themselves. They will apply. Typically, we're getting back to them pretty quickly with some follow-up questions. We then are contacting the employer. But Mary, what did you want to add to that?
Actually, that was me, Woody. I'm Missy Smith, and I typically handle the parent requests and applications to get everything rolling. And that process has been really variable. The timeline has been. We've had parents who are extremely receptive and communicative, and employers and all the parties and the stars align, and we've had people apply and be qualified and start within a week. That's our shortest timeline. And we have people who were still approved last fall who still haven't acted yet because they're just deciding on which path might be better for their family, or maybe they just haven't been able to find the right provider. They're still wanting grandma and they haven't quite made up their, gotten their plan together. So it's incredibly variable, but it can operate really quickly.
Thank you, Missy.
I would agree that a lot of it depends on the employee. You know, we have one person, and I didn't clarify how many people that we had. We have one person who's fully enrolled in the program, but there are 12 other people who are interested, talking about it, asking the questions, or have initiated the process in some fashion. But a lot of it is left up to them to keep the ball moving from their side. And, you know, like Missy said, like if an employee goes in there and they start to do it, but then they're like, no, you know, I'm really comfortable still leaving my kids with grandma or grandma and grandpa, or, you know, the aunt down the street, that's their choice to make. But um you know, we as an employer, Cherry Republic, we don't push the people, like, right, we're not like, oh, you started the process, don't give up, you know. um but but yeah, it's, I mean, it a lot depends on them.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nicole. And thank you for continuing to fire questions at us, Carl. Do others have questions? Does the family have to reapply? Well, that's an interesting question, Kristen. As of right now, is there like a sort of reapplying situation if they were to get a promotion, for example? We are conducting our assessment of eligibility once. So as of right now, if the employee stays with that employer, they are approved to participate in the TriShare program through the remainder of our pilot time. I don't know whether that will change if we were to get into a very long-term situation, but that's the way it currently is. Did that address your question, Kristen, or did you want to get that wrong? She said thank you. I think that addresses it. Some people just want to speak through the chat, and that's totally fine. Other questions? So Lisa Miller asks, I've heard from questions from providers. What does this look like from a childcare provider perspective? How does the money come in? Mary, would you like to answer that question?
I'm happy to. So one of the requirements of this program is that it doesn't add any additional burdens to the childcare provider, either in terms of their billing or paperwork. So what happens when a family is qualified, we find out from them if they're currently using childcare. We find out who their childcare provider is, and then I reach out with some information and answer any questions that the provider has and connect them with the United Way, the finance person at the United Way, who sets up a billing process with them and sets up their payment process. They can either opt for an ACH transfer or they can receive a check mailed to them, whichever they prefer. So it's been pretty painless so far. We've had some interesting situations where we have the way that a particular provider bills is different from our requirements for how we look at attendance. So we base payment on enrollment, not attendance, but we have a couple of providers, school-based providers, who only bill based on attendance. So we've had to work out some details. But by and large, there's plenty of support for the childcare providers to get connected to the system. And then once they're up and running, it's just they're just invoicing the United Way instead of billing the parent.
Thank you for that.
I'll come behind Mary again and just say, from the employer-employee relationship also, the feedback we've had from employee that is enrolled and it's been up and running, she's just so happy to have it all in one spot with the payroll deduct. There's a line item on her pay stub. She can see it's good for her records. She no longer has to worry about getting into the portal on time for her daycare provider and making sure that everything is paid there. It makes the process very streamlined for them. And for us, it is sort of a two-step project because we put the payroll deduct in for the employee. And then we also send the information over to our finance department, who does initiate that ACH. But as Mary said, United Way offered us, lots of different scenarios in order to make that payment, whether it was a check, and we do it biweekly, which is our payroll process. But we could have done it monthly as well, but it works for us to do the ACH every payroll.
These are good questions. Thank you for the answers, Nicole and Mary. Anything else? Oh, I see one more. Can an employee use childcare FSA to cover their 1/3? Mary, do you have an answer to that, or Jen?
I I think that's a question that we would probably want to take to the monthly hub meeting just to confirm.
Just
Know
curious
the
if
answer.
that's an
I don't know
existing
the answer to that
benefit.
question.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it just seems like it would maximize additional benefits that might be available for some employees if they're using a dependent care FSA. If you already have that available as an employer, that the employee would actually, continue to reap additional benefits. So I'd be curious in that answer, but
Yeah, no, it's
Thank you.
a really good question. We should get an answer to that, get it back to you.
And I will get an answer and get back to you, Lisa. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. It's 4:41. Are there other questions you have? We don't have to use our full hour if we don't need to, but I don't want to cut things off if there are still some outstanding questions out there. All right, so for employers who are on the, and maybe I'll go back just so we'll have it on screen. For those who are interested in taking the next step, I encourage you to contact me if you're an employer, or if you want to share my contact information with employers that you know that might be interested. It's often just good to kind of talk through things. So even though there's a lot of information that's been presented to you today, there may be some outstanding questions that come up. So feel free to use me as a resource. I'm happy to talk. If I don't have the answer, I know lots of very smart people who can help me get the answer. And even if this is something that you feel like, yeah, this is good, but it won't work the way it's currently configured, or we want to be able to help, but we're not sure that the TriShare program is right for us, I still would love to have you contact me. There are lots of things that are going on in the state of Michigan right now. Knowing that employers care about this issue and knowing that they want to provide some help and some accommodation to their employees or to their prospective employees is really, really good for us to know as we try to provide feedback on this program and think about other ways that employers can help. So I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions, I will do my best to follow up as quickly as possible. All right, we have one more in the chat, and it was Carl just saying, great solution for the community. Thank you for sharing and doing this, getting this work done. Childcare is a hurdle for many families and keeps working people from doing that. Have you reached out to providers so they can suggest it to their families? It's an interesting question. We've discussed this as a team. I think we definitely have reached out to providers so that they know what is going on. I personally think, it can it can be good to have families who are advocates for their program, but not every employer is in a position to take this program on, and the timing of it matters a lot. So what do you think, Mary?
We definitely are making providers aware of the program so that they, have some preparation in case a family comes to them. And I think maybe Jen can talk a little bit about what's happening. There is another hub that is doing more of that outreach through providers.
Are you referencing the Battle Creek Hub, the Shared Service Alliance, who has internal connections with all of their childcare providers built into their hub? So they kind of started with providers in that way. But really our hub operates differently. And so we made a conscious decision to engage employers, knowing that really that was the beginning of the TriShare process. Is that what you meant, Mary? Okay.
Yeah. So I appreciate the suggestion, Lana, and we'll talk about that again tomorrow. We do our regular check-ins then, and we'll see if that makes sense. But we've definitely been trying to keep all of our providers informed, and some families have found out about the program that way. Yeah, and thank you. Missy just put some additional information in the chat. Yep, thank you. So are there any other questions you might have or suggestions? This is a great conversation, and I don't want, if you have other ideas for how we can be making this available to employers and families in our region, we welcome your input on that. So any other thoughts you might have or questions? Going once, going twice. I think we'll then give you back a few minutes of your afternoon. Enjoy the sunshine. But I wanted to say thank you again for taking the time to learn about this program on behalf of Jen and Mary and Missy and Nicole. Thank you for your good thinking, your good questions, and for being advocates for our families in our part of Michigan. Any other final words from any of the folks I just mentioned?
Just really quickly, I saw in the comments, I think it was Carl who said, for employees, this sounds too good to be true. When you think about hearing you can save 66%, you know, like, oh my goodness, that does seem like too good to be true. But I think that's an important piece of us working together as, you know, a try-share, is that the employer isn't carrying that other portion of the burden by themselves, and the state is helping with that, but they're not carrying the entire burden. And it really does help the parents. And as Missy said, in her comment, it really can lift a weight and a burden for people. So there's so much value to this program, and I think it's wonderful.
Thank you, Nicole. Well, I don't think we're going to end on a better note than that. So thanks again for your time. I appreciate all of you, and feel free to follow up to me directly with any follow-up questions. And we will, everybody that put your email into the chat, we'll make sure that you get a copy of the PowerPoint that we reviewed as well as the report. Okay, and I think we're done.